intergovernmental meeting. Ooh, sorry, Tiffany. We're going to call to order the intergovernmental meeting. We are in Rebecca Hall at 113 West Columbia Avenue, as well as online. What I'd like to do is, the town doesn't need to call the meeting to order for our town council, but I always like to know for the record who is here from each government. So we'll start with the town. And for anyone who feels slighted by sitting in the audience, we do have a few seats up here. If anyone wants to join us up here, you don't have to. Um, and starting with my far right,
Oh, Zoe Donnell, town manager, Telluride.
Maria Stark.
Ellen 11, Town of Telluride.
How about I do this? Me and
Oh,
all the managers.
Shannon, right? Town of Telluride.
and myself, Teddy Erico. We have Kristen Permakoff online, representing
everyone.
the town of Telluride as well. And town attorney Kevin Geiger is online as well. With that, I'll hand it off to Scott Pearson for his roll call.
Thanks, Teddy. So here in the room is Tucker Magid and myself, Scott Pearson, online. I think I saw Harvey Mogensen and Dan Jansen. Is there anybody else online? All right. Welcome, you guys.
Michelle sitting over there as well.
And then, yeah, sorry. Also, we have, Michelle Bolson, our interim town manager.
Great, thank you. And then Ann, would you like to do the honors for the count?
Sure. I'm Ann Brown, one of the county commissioners. Commissioner Gleason is here as well. And we have our deputy county manager, Jared Biggs.
Great. I want to make sure I'm not missing any represented entity.
Wait, we have Megan Knowles, our comms director, comms coordinator online.
Perfect. I know I see John Wontrowski with Oprah online. Is there anybody else that I'm missing?
Carmen Warfield, clerk to the BOCC.
Okay, awesome. With that, we are going to get started. Number one is work sessions. And with that is 1A, regional large projects update, which is kind of a new thing where we're going to give everyone 5 minutes to talk about what they've got going on a large scale. We will start with Zoe, and you're on.
Great. Okay. And I don't know if Galena wants to give a little bit more of an introduction, but this came out of our last intergovernmental meeting where it was clear that some of our regional partners that maybe don't necessarily always participate in our intergovernmental meetings, we could have a place for all of them to hear regionally just what we're doing here within San Miguel County that they might be interested in. So we've started putting a list together of some of those contacts, and hopefully they're listening in to the start of this meeting. So from the town of Telluride's perspective, there's not too much that I would say is going to have a larger impact on some of our outlying communities within Montrose County or Ouray County, but they are very impactful here within our region. So I'll start with some of our housing development updates. Our Canyonlands Tower House public-private partnership. We're going to be hopefully seeing Canyonlands wrapping up in its construction in the first quarter of 2027, and our Tower House the second quarter of 2027. So that is 36 deed restricted units, 28 rental, 8 for sale, and 3 free market. We also have our Virginia Placer 2A. This is 9 units for town operations, on-call, temporary recruitment, seasonal, long-term, as well as opening up potentially for special districts, master leasing, or other potential uses. And that's just 9 units right near our public works facility. We are also working, of course, on our Car Hinge or Lot L Shandoka lot redevelopments. The big thing that's going to have an impact here for everyone to know is we are doing the Shandoka lot story polls tomorrow. It's going to be lasting for 10 days. So those within the Shandoka lot that have an S permit are being displaced to Car Hinge lot, and commuters utilizing Car Hinge lot, we're opening up our G permit zones. And of course, the other free parking that we have throughout town within the lots for them to park in. So it's a little bit of a inconvenience of logistics, but a necessary part of our development review process. So that is the big updates there. Town is also still in the midst of our wayfinding project, which We are focusing on our town park and our parking signage for phase 1 and phase 2. And that is scheduled for the next 5 years. So there's a lot there. And then from our public works, streets and utilities, we have our Mahoney Bridge replacement, which we're in the CDOT process. I think no need to say more on that, but that's taking quite some time to get all of our requirements lined up for CDOT, but hopefully to start construction at the end of this year, beginning of next year. We also have some pressure relief valve replacements within our roadways, Davis Street being a main one right now. And we're continuing to finalize our Stillwell high pressure fill and drain line. That's that big patch of grass that you see on the hillside there. And we're just finalizing the revegetation of that piece. So that's kind of just in a nutshell the things we're working on. So I'll pass it off to you, Michelle.
I wonder, Galena and Scott, if you guys want to segue into like the kind of communications and that sort of thing. Otherwise, we can jump back to me if Galena or Scott, you wanted to take that on next.
Well, we heard loud and clear that the surrounding jurisdictions felt like they didn't have clear visibility into the Four Seasons project and have had a number of discussions about how to address that. One thing that we've done is we've put together an email list. You know, we have a lot of email lists, but this is specifically targeted at officials in surrounding jurisdictions. And the plan is to use that every time we have any, public meeting concerning a large scale project that could have an impact. We're happy to share that list with the county and tell you a lot of the names we got from Galena. And so hopefully that will go some measure toward making sure that people are aware of, when we're having meetings. And of course, all our meetings are available on Zoom. So you can participate from wherever.
Thanks, Scott. I'd just like to say thank you for all the jurisdictions being willing to entertain this addition to all our IG agendas. I think also with new incoming leaders and our neighboring jurisdictions, they will really appreciate this format and getting up to speed with what's going on throughout San Miguel County and just in the really purpose of outreach and breaking out of our silos and in the name of collaboration and coordination. I think this is a really great way to do this. And we can all be more up to speed with what each other are doing, and our neighbors will also understand what's going on here. And hopefully it's an opportunity for us to learn what's going on in Ouray and Montrose and Dolores counties as well.
Thank you. So I'll just note, Four Seasons is still being constructed. Most of the excavation of dirt is completed. There's a little bit left. That was really a big lift for our community. I know it's been impactful in the region. I've had smaller projects with much more complaints. So I think they're very well organized around that effort, which we're all grateful for. And now concrete's being poured and everyone can see what's going on when you ride the gondola into the core. We don't anticipate any other really large scale projects in any immediate future right now. And like every government, we're working on our roads and trying to improve our trails. And that's kind of status quo from that side of things.
Maybe the wastewater plant.
Well, yes, we do want to build a new wastewater plant and have identified a property and are working diligently together towards those efforts. Hopefully we can bring a few things to fruition and also continue to educate our community around the state of our current plant and around the necessity for technologies, mostly related to a new plant, and why it's been really hard to figure that out on the current site. But yes, that's there. And then I'm sure, we've got gondola efforts that are ongoing, but I don't see construction being imminent with that. But obviously it's a shared issue that a lot of brains are working towards.
Great. With that, we'll hand it off to San Miguel County.
Thank you, Mayor Errico, everyone. In terms of projects, large projects that are happening in the county. I think the one that is most notable to all of us right now is the Society Turn PUD development. Obviously, that is not a county specific project as similar to Four Seasons, but it is a significant project that's happening. You can see they've got aprons, they've got curb and gutter. They're really moving ahead pretty quickly. And so it's great to see that project moving ahead. And I think we appreciate everybody being patient. We're trying to get any communications we get from them out to the public in as expedient a manner as possible. That way, when people are coming up Keystone or coming down from the village, they know they might have a little bit of a wait there. Whenever we know there might be a little bit of a wait there. So that's probably the largest project. Other than that, similar to what Michelle mentioned, our roads crews are out working on all of our roads countywide. I think chip sealing is going to begin in about 2 weeks. So you'll start to see actual, work on paving in a couple of weeks from now. I talked with Ryan Rigetti about that this morning. And so there may be some waits out on county roads in some areas. And other than that, we are working on our county specific housing projects as well, making a bit of good progress. We had a design charrette with CDOT for the Deep Creek project. Again, that's just kind of conceptual design right now for up to about 35 units, and that would be phased depending on the availability mostly of water and wastewater provision. And then we had well testing last week, and I want to express my appreciation to the San Bernardo HOA. We were able to conduct well testing. Those results are being analyzed by our engineers now to determine if water supply is sufficient in that neck of the woods for to share that water supply with San Bernardo and our project at the Pathfinder Gravel Pit. And then the last one is just our very small project in Ilium Valley. We are kind of looking for alternatives and other options right now. We recently had kind of our preliminary bid results come back at an incredibly high number that makes us question whether it's a feasible project. So we continue to look at that, and we may be continuing to look at the drawing board to see how we can make that project work.
I think it's worth mentioning that that's a 5-unit on-call housing similar to your Virginia Placer. And the initial bid came in over $1,200 a square foot. So that was a little bit, took the wind out of our sails.
And that is without land acquisition. So we, yeah. I think that's just the reality of all of our housing projects as we look, as you'll hear in other areas today, we're working on a lot of housing code updates and other ways to access housing in an expedient manner. And we keep coming back to the cost of construction as one of the biggest impediments, which this whole group knows well.
And just to put a finer point on that, Jared, can you, if you're able, elaborate? Was the high cost related more to materials or to the labor component of the bid, or both? Probably, but is there? How do we help sort of identify the root causes to help? I don't even know that there's anything we can do, but I feel more empowered when I have more knowledge.
Largely, I think it's an all of the above.
Yes.
Councilor Aaron, right?
Yeah.
It's a challenge, right? And I do know that in our discussions with our contractor there, they have mentioned that the challenging topography of that site as well is a big issue. It's almost a third in terms of, civil work, labor, supply of materials. All of them being significantly higher than a lot of communities around the states. So, thank you, Jared. Michelle had asked about the rock scaling on Norwood Hill. I believe that was designed this year and to be executed next year by CDOT, if I recall correctly.
That's correct. They're going to start that project hopefully next spring is what is on the CDOT work plan. I'd also like to cover kind of the antithesis of regional development, but an effort that everyone in this room is undertaking in the San Miguel County Dark Sky designation. And I just wanted to express a thank you to the towns of Norwood, Ophir, and Mountain Village for the efforts to date to work towards the first ever County Dark Sky Reserve application. And thank you to Telluride for committing to support the application. And just as a reminder, the steps to submit, to get to submittal phase for this is a lighting ordinance or adjustment to land use code to be compliant. And then a support letter from each town and jurisdiction, which can include data on economics, wildlife, and climate benefits. And then the heaviest lift is lighting inventory, documenting all public lighting within all jurisdictions. And this is by far the most time-consuming part of this project. Mountain Village has utilized GIS to compile their lighting. So that was really impressive, apparently, to Dark Sky International, and has been a really smooth, really easy way to submit that information and have it be very accessible for the application team. So thanks and props to Mountain Village for all their work on this Dark Sky movement. And really just a background and understanding if designated a San Miguel County Dark Sky Reserve will be internationally unique. We would be the first county to achieve this premier recognition by Dark Sky International. And if designated, the reserve will be the third in the US and 24th in the world, certainly putting the county on an international dark sky astrotourism map. And I've really been behind this as soon as I learned about it. I think it's a really unique opportunity for our region to diversify our economy with astrotourism, as well as to protect the ecosystems that rely on the circadian rhythms associated with dark skies, and preserving the incredibly rare and precious resource of night sky gazing that exists throughout San Miguel County. So thank you all for your efforts to date. And if you have any questions, I'm always available because I've been pretty hands-on with this process. I'll also say that there's a committed citizen volunteer group led by Bob Grossman who are working to apply through Dark Sky International. They're always looking for additional volunteers to assist them. They're currently a mighty group of 5. And we, the governments, can certainly help with the lighting inventory. But if any of the public are listening, or you can just spread the word, they definitely need more hands to see this work through.
Great. Thank you. With that, we've got John Wachowski online. I don't know what exciting things are happening in Ophir, but I want to give you the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, big projects in Ophir might not be as big what you guys see, but tomorrow we're going to have equipment mobilizing up here. It's an Ophir project, but the Forest Service and DRMS are capping a waste pile at the New Dominion mine just to the east of Ophir. It'll result in closure of Ophir Road for 3 weeks, daytime closures only, and I think a press release is coming out from the Forest Service on that one. We also just today started installing solar panels and batteries, which when we also get heat pumps on our buildings, we are hoping to be a 100% solar powered municipality. A lot of our work is still going towards hopefully replacing about 1,500 linear feet of asbestos concrete water mains next summer. We're working on the engineering and the grants now. I don't know if I've talked to this group about it recently, but we have installed a rocket composter up in our trash shed $35,000 unit that is doing a great job of composting, and it's very it's a decentralized compost idea, and I really invite anybody who wants to come up and take a look at it. Rather than hauling compost around in big trucks, you could just take care of it where you are generating it. And finally, we are watching very closely water levels in Waterfall Creek. That's our main water source. And like everywhere else, it is low. It is as low as anybody around here has ever seen it. None of the old timers have ever said it has dried up, but that is a possibility this year. We do have a pretty steady alternative water source on the other side of the valley, but just the fact that we would have no water in the creek is kind of concerning. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, John. I appreciate that update. And I know Candy is online as well, if she would like to give an update for Norwood.
Thank you very much, Teddy, but I'm actually going to pass this off to my town manager, Sarah Owens.
Great.
Thanks.
Hi guys, Sarah Owens, town of Norwood. We are about a week away from wrapping up our Pocket Park project, which is pretty exciting. We had the EV charging station installed last week and it should be programmed this week. We are still plugging away on our water line project. The biggest hurdle being just making sure we've secured all of our funding. So we're making some headway on that. We just finished up a drainage study. So I'll be looking into securing some funding to hopefully improve some drainage at a later date. We are also continuing to work through our land use code update. It does look like we're going to have to extend our development moratorium for a few more months, just until we can get phase 1 accomplished so that we have a clear path and procedure to allowing permitting on larger projects. And then we'll just roll right into a master plan update as well. And then I did have our first scoping and field visit with CDOT last week to start planning our Norwood Hill project, to do some guardrail improvement. They have another project lined up that they're hoping we can combine our efforts and hopefully save both these projects a little bit of time and a little bit of money. So that's about it for the town of Norwood.
Great. Ann?
I have a question, Sarah. It's Ann Brown. Do you have the money lined up for the water line project? Are you still looking for additional resources?
We're still looking. We're at about close to 4 million secured in funding, and we're looking at a $10.3 million project.
And will you bond for any of that, or you need to raise it all?
We are looking at doing a loan that has some principal forgiveness.
Thanks.
So reluctance to bond for any of it?
I'm not 100% sure yet.
I will weigh in and say I spoke with Norwood Water Commission Chair Tony Durrani recently, and he did express that there was a reluctancy to bond at this point in time. That might evolve, but that is the latest news I heard from him.
Great.
Mayor Errico, if I may, I believe Sarah's SRF program that includes some principal forgiveness is a debt repayment vehicle, that it's a revolving loan fund bonding program that is operated by the state of Colorado. So it is a bond, but they do tend to have some forgiveness resources available for communities like Norwood or otherwise. So
Is that out of the 4.5 million, or is that, on top of the 4.5 million that you've raised?
It would have to be on top of. Yeah, we're trying to close that $6 million gap.
Some of which could be filled by this debt?
Correct. The idea is to go for this loan that has hopefully up to 50% principal forgiveness.
All right. Before we move on to the next.
Oh, I just have one other question, Sarah, about the CDOT project that you were referring to combining, and I'm I'm guessing that is with the rockfall mitigation. Is that what CDOT was? No. Okay.
No, they have some other project and I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but they had another one that they felt would complement and they could work alongside the guardrail. But it wasn't the county's project.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, before we move on to 1B, any other questions from anybody for government? I see Dan Jansen's hand raised. We can unmute Dan, Tiffany.
Uh,
You should be good.
yeah, no question. I was just blocked from audio or video, and I get it. But I was just gonna ask if I could turn it on. I had a question from about 10 minutes ago. I'm gonna take it offline, but just would love to be part of the meeting.
All right, we see you now.
All right,
You were
thanks.
there before, so I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I thought you kicked me out, Teddy. I was a little hurt, but it's okay.
But before we move on to 1B, I would open up any questions intergovernmentally if you have any questions for each other before we move on. Alrighty then we'll keep rolling. That gets us to agenda item work session 1B, and that is the allyship with the Ute, and we have Ernest House Jr.
Can I do a little introduction, please?
You bet.
So we are thrilled and honored to have Ernest with us today. He is the Senior Policy Director and the Director of the Center for Tribal and Indigenous Engagement at the Keystone Policy Center. He serves on the boards of the Gates Family Foundation and the Nature Conservancy, among others. And he is an enrolled member of the Ute Mountain Ute tribe in Toyac and a prominent leader in Native American affairs. Thank you for being here.
Wow, thank you very much, Councilman Stark, Mayor, elected officials, staff. It's an honor to receive the invitation. I think when Councilman reached out earlier this spring and looked at different options to come and speak before you all, I was really looking forward to this opportunity. And it actually goes back to the person who's recording me right now or taking pictures of me, as we all know the infamous Mr. Good Times, who I met several years ago when he was the representative on the county. I was the then director for the Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs. I've been doing tribal engagement for 20 years, and I've worked for 3 governors in Colorado, numerous elected officials. And it was during that time that I felt that we were asking our question at the state: how should we broaden our outreach more than just state agencies? And obviously local government in San Miguel County came to the top of the list. So I was honored to have then County Commissioner Good Times join our Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs and just the establishment thereon. And wanted to start out with, again, thank you. I think the relationship with the Ute tribes is so important on a variety of different levels. But I'm here today. I work for the Keystone Policy Center. We're based headquartered in Keystone. We have an office in Denver and DC, so I'm based out of Denver. But my staff gives me a hard time because every call, including today, as I'm on the road. I work with communities like Steamboat to Boulder. I've been serving as an advisor to Boulder for the last 9 years on tribal engagement, which has the largest agreement with the most tribes we've seen in the state at a local government level, which is almost 18 tribal nations around parks and open space for the city and county of Boulder. And then down more recently is the city of Denver. I was just tapped by Mayor Johnston in March to build the nation's first tribal embassy for the Front Range and the region of Denver on a much broader scope. And if you think about that, we're actually approaching using the term embassy as a way that we would see an embassy in another country, knowing that our tribal nations are sovereign and the sovereign land, and that's always been without political boundaries, state lines, county lines, local government, etc. We're thinking of it in a different way. I'm telling you all of this because Colorado has and continues to be, and I've met with all of our elected officials and those who are currently running. And I think that one thing that I try to establish is Colorado, in my opinion, in my work, has been a pro-Indigenous state. We're passing state laws. We're seeing more engagement with tribal nations, even at a local level when consultation is not required at a local level. Some would say that even consultation at the state level is debatable on whether or not consultations should happen. Federally, absolutely, because tribes sign treaties with the federal government and through agencies, education, healthcare, and public safety are provided that. But at the local level is what we're really seeing a lot of movement on. And as a board member on the Colorado chapter for the Nature Conservancy, I know we're just down here maybe last week celebrating our 60th year. Communities like San Miguel County and Telluride have been such an important aspect. Now, I also share that with my other hat where I was born and raised 2 hours away. I still have a home in McElmo Canyon that I look after. And I think it's so important that over that time, we've seen gradual increase of, and thanks to organizations, another organization I'm involved with, Telluride Institute, and others, by including Ute Ski Day. I was just there, the second one this last year, which was amazing. We're starting to see more and more students seeing them, and organizations like Patagonia here in Telluride being able to provide jackets and pants, stuff I would have never seen in my tribal community. Primarily because majority of my tribal members meet or exceed the federal poverty guideline. So there's no funding to go rock climbing. There's no funding to go rafting. There's no funding to go skiing or to afford a lift ticket. Especially when you have places like, Hesperus that used to be our only one ski hill in the Southwest, and Durango and Wolf Creek and others. But my point of it is that these type of partnerships, getting back here to where we've always called Colorado home, is so important. And ways to think about that beyond what you don't. And I know that the county and the city have signed agreements with the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, particularly as early as 2014, to establish that government to government relationship. But one of the key things that I've been taking on my kind of the road show has been the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. I don't know if you've heard about the Colorado Outdoor Strategy at all. But here's the strategy itself, and I apologize if it's too small there. Going to presenter here. Get this a little bit bigger for you. So this was created in 2025 by Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Colorado Department of Natural Resources. We at Keystone put a bid out to help build the framework of the outdoor strategy, along with numerous other partners, CU Boulder, CSU, a lot of the technical data information that the state was capturing around wildfire mitigation, everything from like beaver restoration that we just discussed. Every one of these, and I've even said this publicly, fill in the blank animal that we're restoring in Colorado, I'm proud to say now has a tribal component of why that species, particularly the beaver, are so intricate into what Indigenous people have always known and have always utilized. And in fact, there's even broader conversations around not just the wildlife, but also other areas that we're seeing, not just for wildfire, but then ways to be able to help what outdoor recreation conservation means to the state of Colorado. So here it is, the state strategy was released. Sorry if you've already heard about this information, but when you've seen that, obviously you've seen these areas, like I mentioned, the climate resiliency, the outdoor recreation portion, and then there's this funding component, right? GOCO announced that they're putting $50 million to this project, and really encouraging each region around Colorado to, in the zones that they're made up in, that you all are made up in, to look at ways to support outdoor strategy, this framework moving into the future. Now, what I love about this is that at the same time, at Keystone, we pitched, why doesn't the state come up with a tribal collaboration guidebook? For those entities, those organizations, those governments who don't live 2 hours away, who've never worked with the tribe, who never hired somebody who grew up or is a member of one of the tribes, to actually come up and say, well, how do you work with the tribe? What does that look like? What is even the tribe's priorities? Do they have a set of priorities? Is there a way to move this conversation forward? So it took us almost about 3 years, but we came up with I believe, the state's first tribal collaboration. And here's all these folks. And I was one of the authors on this. It brings out the priorities, strategies, barriers. We talk about case studies, all within this framework. It's an 80-page document. I know you're going to run out and you're going to read front to back. But in case you're not, what I'm here to tell you is that what I really appreciate about this whole document is that we've approached looking at our outdoor industry issue questions into these 4 areas: long-term relationships, mutual respect, traditional knowledge, and resource sharing. Now, there is actively 1, if not all 4, that maybe your staff, and I know I've even walked out there, especially at Bear Creek kiosk, to have the same kind of conversation. How can traditional knowledge, which is the #1 question I get on a regular everyday basis, if not weekly, how does that turn into resource sharing? How does that turn into providing mutual respect? And then thusly, what does that long-term relationship look like? Actually moving from, yes, it's awesome, we have this 2014 intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, an MOU, an MOA that empowers our leadership in San Miguel County to work with, or our communities to work with, Ute Mountain or Southern Ute or Northern Ute in Utah. But what does that actually mean? What is the tangible plan or idea does that look to? I think a kiosk absolutely is an example of that. And I think what we're seeing with the release of this project, we're seeing a lot of interest, a lot of organizations and communities, Steamboat, asking the same thing. We'd love to have tribal engagement. We'd love for them to be on this mountain. We'd love for them to have active involvement. We used to. We don't have it regularly anymore. How do we do that? NOCO, which is a coalition of governments on the Front Range, from Jefferson County to Larimer County. We've just been talking with them. They said, we'd love to talk about how can we get tribes in front of us on a regular basis? How can we start a coalition or invite them so that we can talk about what our parks and open space do, our signage, update everything that's outdated? So we're using this all the way even to the San Luis Valley. I've been working with the Nature Conservancy on buffalo restoration for the last 5 years on our herd there at the base of the sand dunes. And it's also with the communities there in the valley. So there's a component of this all around. So that's really what I'm here to share, and I'm going to be speaking a little bit more on it at the library later today. But has been, and I mean, it's a shout out to the artist. This was a CSU student, Indigenous artist, in the environmental program there, who designed this for us. And looking at this, and as you go through the document and has more specifics as to how, we've come up with that, I just encourage you to do that. But last but not least, I think one of the things is, what I wanted to end there is that just because we came out with the framework doesn't mean that communities are automatically going to sign up and go, yeah, of course, I want to partner with the tribe. Great. That's awesome. Thanks for creating this document. And even we put in there some hurdles. What happens if you don't receive a phone call back or you're on the 10th email and you're just like, I got to move on. We put in there examples of how to move forward, and continue that relationship building. But there's also a component of the outdoor strategy that when you partner with tribes, the outdoor strategy process wants to see that. And so we're glad that GOCO and the state and CPW will try to advocate for communities to partner. So what I'm saying is I hope that San Miguel and your partners, and I'm meeting with close to 20 of them here in the next hour, who are all asking the same question. What are the Ute names for these peaks? Bless you. What are the different ways that we can look at data collection that the tribes are collecting through their own wildlife department? We're in the Bruno area. What does the Bruno area mean? What does it mean to the tribes today? We just had our Sundance, and sounds like some folks here went to our Bear Dance, which is at the beginning of the summer in the springtime. The Utes, we have two dances, a bear dance, which is open to everybody, and a sun dance, which is closed just to tribal members. And it's held up on our mountain, but because of the drought that Ute Mountain has experienced, I was told that it's for the first time we have to have shade trees up there for families, shade lodges, so that families come and they eat meals and they'll sit under that shade tree. I was told that this was the first time ever that the tribe has had to acquire cottonwoods, young cottonwood trees off the reservation due to the drought. We do not have any more. Now, we've been partnering with a lot of conservation groups in the Mancos Valley, in the creek system, to try to build beaver analog dams, to try to replant cottonwood trees, but we're years from that. And thankfully, we're starting to see more partnerships with local government, with federally managed federal agencies or land managing agencies, so Forest Service, Park Service, that have opened their door to say, yeah, come on board, come over here and collect however many you want. I was told that this time the tribe actually had a great partnership with the owner of Stoner and that area to be able to go and collect there. But I say that because, you know, the reservation, the Ute Mountain tribe, 600,000 acres in 3 states, majority is in Colorado. And we have no more cottonwood trees to be able to collect. We've been in Colorado for the last 10 to 12,000 years. But just really over that last short amount of time, we're seeing that impact of the drought. And so there's no better time, I think, and examples that maybe you're already doing in your communities with thinning your forests, with looking at fire mitigation and creating a space to even invite a potential partnership to look at what Indigenous knowledge might mean to the work that you're already doing in San Miguel County is really what I'm advocating for. And hopefully not that with an empty gesture of, oh, by the way, you should just do it out of the goodness of your heart, because I think you have been establishing that. But there's also programs there for funding to actually help build and strengthen that relationship through the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. I'll step there. We just finished this project with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We went statewide with the listening sessions tour to talk about state parks and the engagement of Indigenous communities. State parks have actively been engaging with tribes. And even though it may not be the state park in your backyard, the newest state park, Fisher's Peak, works currently with 18 different tribes on a variety of things. All the way Cherry Creek State Park does, Bar Lake, the list goes on and on. But this report will be available publicly here in the next few weeks. I just submitted this last week internally, so they'll be turning this around to hopefully have additional data and information for ideas. All this is just to spark ideas, to spark opportunities, and also a great opportunity for our young people, you know, to see the group of 30 students that came up for ski day. And this is my 4th time in Terre. I come down here quite a bit. I work with Mountain Film on expanding their Indigenous programming. And then also I'm down here just with family to do family reunions during 4th of July. So maybe I've seen y'all here during that time. But I just would love to see if there's an opportunity that the community that I love so much, that's really my, you know, what I call home in this part of the state, have the opportunity to use this framework to better their tribal partnerships and establish something like what Commissioner Good Times put in play a long time ago. I'm happy to do that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Tohoya means thank you and you. Happy to answer any questions too if anybody has it.
Great. Thank you very much. Any question for Ernest?
I have a question, Ernest. Thank you for being here. That was really, I just learned a lot. And I think we all feel similarly that having that outreach and collaboration and more connection with our regional tribes is really important. The county has, for the past couple of years, formed what we have called a recreation collaboration, but I feel like the name of the group needs to really be changed. I mean, there's been an emphasis on trails, and the roundtable brings in the different agencies, BLM, Forest Service, as well as the local governments to discuss local issues and projects. But the county just applied to formally formalize this group through the sorry, I'm going back to my notes here. Through the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. What I feel like is really missing at that roundtable is tribal representation. And I'm wondering what, from your perspective, what that might look like. Like, could there be outreach? And I'm sure Maria could help, kind of help navigate this. But if there's a local Ute Mountain Ute rep that would be willing to tune into those meetings and bring that perspective, and also I foresee it as an opportunity to share resources like what you're referencing with wildfire mitigation and, all these issues that we're trying to tackle as local governments and as communities. And when you're talking about this, I just kind of thought like, wow, that's a missing seat at the table. And this might be a real opportunity through this working group. And I think we'll be applying for funding. So maybe that could look like some funding stream to the local tribes to participate and give feedback. I'm not sure, but if you have any, kind of thoughts on that or some contacts to reach out to, I think that would be really beneficial to just continue to engage and have that seat at the table filled.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And I think that's exactly the type of opportunity that I think could be and should be extended. I should have said this at the very beginning too. I want to make sure I don't speak on behalf of Ute Mountain or Southern Ute. And I think that what I do have are the contacts and the connections for those folks to then have official representation on what that might look like. There's also Southern Ute Indian Tribe has a really great youth council that they've had for numerous years. I know Ute Mountain has attempted to revive theirs, which is also a great framework for engagement of a youth voice. So there's that component there as well. And then I think too, the representation for the tribal council is also, I think, is a great way to introduce this. Mayor or city council or county commissioners, if you're ever have the opportunity to even just go to Ignacio or to Ute Mountain to present, we've seen that numerous times as a way to open up whatever these partnerships are. I think a lot of times, because I know how busy you all are with working with elected officials also, and then also with the tribes are inundated, right? And one person is wearing 10 different hats. And so I think what's helpful, Zoom is also permissible, and it's an opportunity for both Ute Mountain and Southern Ute. But I think that's a great question. And I think ways to move that forward and utilizing the outdoor strategy as a way of saying who's missing, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I hope that you'll include in that application that there's an Indigenous component there. Because if you don't, and we've created this whole process for the state, it would be such a, for lack of a better word, bummer for have a county this really adjacent next door neighbor to not apply for it, to be able to say, yes, this is what it was. Because I know what Steamboat's wanting to do. I know what Larimer County's wanting to do. I know what Boulder's wanting to do. I even know what Colorado Springs is wanting to do. They're all asking the same question. And I think that the opportunity to just continue that is there. And so happy to continue providing those connections and being a resource for you as you roll that out and that opportunity out. Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Amy, we're gonna have to have you step up to a microphone.
I really appreciate this discussion. I'm here as an open space, Town of Telluride Open Space Commission member. And thanks to Nancy, thanks to Art, thanks to Ernest, we've had a lot of input on the kiosk at Bear Creek to make sure that history is represented. And in the future, we're looking now at valley floor signs. And we hope to continue that kind of partnership. And if there's anything else that we can do.
Ernest, what's the best way to follow up with you?
I believe I shared my contact information with Councilman Stark, but I can send it to whomever would be another point of contact to share that with you.
Oh, Maria can share with me. Thanks.
I have kind of a philosophical question, and I'm Ann Brown. I'm one of the county commissioners. Thank you for being here, and thank you for, I don't know, just reaching out and helping us understand how important the connection is and the time here for the Ute people in their native lands. I work a lot with our immigrant community, and we always want to have their voice heard in local decision making and planning and all that. And yet, when we reach out, it often feels like we're putting a burden on them. They're already so burdened by just getting through the day, particularly in these years. And I just wonder, how do we establish the relationship, ask for your input, visits, that kind of thing, without adding to your burden? What's the best way to do that? And maybe your framework can help me understand that.
Well, I would definitely encourage you to look at the framework, because there are some questions in there that the tribe might be asking the same questions that you're asking. And that might be a great place to start. For example, the history of the Bruno Agreement, and that, there's automatic links that you can provide. And the Telluride History Museum has been really great about that. And other organizations, that's their charge, I understand. But what other ways? I mean, the kiosk was one that we were talking about, putting contemporary photographs of our youth, our royalty, which are our youth ambassadors, primarily so that folks that are hiking the trail or just come in and you see them every day in this community. The general thought process about American Indians for the broader public in Colorado is that we're non-existent. They see a lot of great black and white photographs of Chief Ouray, and they go to the amazing places like Ouray, and they have Ute Creek and Ute. I mean, you know how many mountains and creeks and things are named Ute? It's not even a Ute. It's a Spanish word. Utes we're called Nuchu. We have our own language for ourselves, for those tribal nations that still speak their native tongue, which is actually less than 200, if you're wondering, out of 575 federally recognized tribes, including Alaska. But my point is that language revitalization, using a picture of contemporary people that look like me. Obviously I don't have any braids. I'm not in buckskin today. I do have beadwork. That is something unique of Utes. But my point is that the connection from the past to contemporary is so important. And I know there's only so many characters that we can fit on a plexi screen glass on a kiosk. But is there a link for folks to learn more? Is there a QR code that folks can scan, especially post-COVID, that you can download all this other information? But I think that helps tell the information and the history that we're sharing, that the tribe has already given approval to use in agreements that's in buffalo or beaver restoration right now in the state of Colorado in that agreement. So my point is that I would start with something that maybe the Natural Resource Department is already working on, collecting. Maybe there's an opportunity to collect cottonwood trees, or maybe there's areas down here that are already discussing public space with tribal nations about what that looks like through partners like TNC. But there's also the opportunity to build. I know at the Gates Family Foundation, we're asking the same thing. I know with the dollars that are shrinking at the federal level, a lot more pressure that's come onto foundations regionally and statewide. Gates is absolutely, we're still going to move forward with funding education programs in rural Colorado and on the Western Slope. It's not going to be Denver centric. And I think that kind of partnership helps establish that. So I'm not saying that, yes, would it be something that a tribal council member might designate to be this role every day? That might not be it.
Sure.
But in that process, you might find something that's maybe meeting twice a year, maybe quarterly, and maybe they're building up to that because they see, once you start looking at going down the list of open up opportunities. I mean, to have a bear dance celebration in this valley I know it's been done before, maybe a few different times, but to have it on a regular basis, um, this is why this space was here, and I think that that's, as a displaced society that is not too far away, but still here on a regular basis, would love to bring that knowledge back. And I think that opportunity, that's a blessing, not just for us as our people, but it's for humanity. It's for all of us. It's for the people that are still here, that tourists that just spent the last weekend here and is on their way back to wherever they're coming from. My point is that people come here for healing, and it's which is why I'm guessing you all are here. But for those of us that have always been here, we knew that power is here. We know that it's collected here, and that's the energy we want it to be utilized by everybody.
Great. Dan?
Zoe, has the town already placed order for the informational signs that are proposed at the entryway to town? Have we ordered that signs as part of our sign? Not in this phase. Wonderful. I'd love to put the input in and look for consensus. Not that this is the time from the rest of council to add an acknowledgement of the Ute history in this valley, because I think that recommendation from the open space is very appropriate, and we'd love to see that.
And open space valley floor, their wayfinding is really being held within that commission. So I know they are following our wayfinding line. But taking that as input as it relates to.
Sure. I'm talking specifically the welcoming signs that, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Joe?
You're gonna be presenting at the library tonight?
Yes.
At 5:30? Okay, great.
Any other questions in the room? We have one hand raised since it is a work session. Sorry.
That's okay. Clearly this whole region is in need of more efforts around wildfire and, like beaver adjacent restoration and all of that. I mean, are there groups that can bring indigenous practices to our county and our town that we could, engage with and hire?
It's a really good question. And I think that I would initially first start with our Ute elders and our Ute natural resource departments. What I mean by that also is I think that there are clearly other examples that we're seeing around Colorado that other tribal nations utilize culture fires. And I think that's something more and more people are requesting about how they were or were not utilized by Utes in this certain area. And so there's more and more information that we're trying to collect from not just Ute tribes, but others. But I would start with the Utes because obviously as continuous homeland, but then also other tribal nations that have utilized other parts of Colorado. We're starting to see that more and more. When I said earlier that indigenous knowledge is the number one question I get, I quickly follow up with that saying that in a lot of my presentations, I tell folks that, indigenous knowledge, I love Robin Kimmerer, and I love her work and the work she's done. And I love that braiding sweetgrass and the book. And if you haven't read it, please go out and do that. What that has done on the other side is that I think to the broader public, people are asking me, traditional knowledge is not something I can just email you. And I want to follow up with that and saying, this is a commitment. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint, right? And 2 weeks ago, on August 1st, I helped the state outdoor recreation office with coordinating blessings on Mount Blue Sky and then Pikes Peak. In Ute, Pikes Peak, the word for Pikes Peak means where the sunlight hits first. And Blue Sky is also very similar. And we had Shine Arapaho reps on Mount Blue Sky and Ute reps on Pikes Peak. But it was also as a way to offer blessing for humanity for the next 150 years. We know that there's dark chapters in our shared history, especially here with mining and westward expansion and manifest destiny and all that stuff I won't go into. But my point of it was that as hikers were hiking Colorado 14ers, especially down here, these blessings were for them as well. They were for all of us. And I think that the reason why I'm sharing that is because there was traditional knowledge shared in that moment, in that time. So it's almost building the relationships so that when you are able to capture that, when your staff is out there on hikes listening to elders and being able, can we share this or is it just for me? That's a conversation that's going to come with this type of info. That's the traditional knowledge is what I'm talking about. And I think that that's part of that information that kind of go back to eventually what you might be looking for.
Yeah, I remember at your presentation at Mountain Film a year or two ago, talking about how there were areas that were managed by indigenous peoples and they were like bright green and everything around it is like brownfield. And so, it's really important for us to adopt traditions that work.
And that was one of the other questions that came up with the beaver restoration by an indigenous workshop that we held. We brought in indigenous academics from around the country and to talk about data collection and mapping by CU and CSU overlaying certain known sacred sites that tribes were utilizing and had created areas where beaver dams had already been in place for a long time. So, this whole idea of wildfire restoration in certain riparian areas, focusing and utilizing where we could restore, revive beaver restoration in that area along with cultural significant areas and sites is really important. I think the biggest part of the Parks and Rec work that we've seen has not been, if you create a new trail, great, or maybe add a name in indigenous language to that existing trail, but it's been actually taking elders out on the landscape and them saying that is very protected, that this area needs to be even more protected than what you're doing. And the reason why is because there's this paint that you can only get from this place. It doesn't come up anywhere else in the state of Colorado. It only comes from right here. That happens here in this landscape. It happens all the time. And so I think some of that information is not for public distribution though. And I think that's part of that information and knowledge that needs to be shared and kept.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll take one more question before we close this agenda item with Ernest, and we'll go online to Mr. Tooley, who's been patient.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Tooley, I've been a steward and a volunteer with the Bears Ears Intertribal Coalition for over 10 years. There's the idea of giving the valley floor some sort of native name, and that would be, I think, a tribal choice. Jimmy Note of the Colorado Plateau Foundation in Zuni, who's spoken here, has some thoughts on general strategies. There's the Fort Wingate Spring near Gallup that used to be called Bear Springs. But lots of ways you could approach that we actually name the valley floor, give the valley floor a native name. In addition, I think we should have some actual property, tribal land in the east end of San Miguel County and the west end. Lots of opportunities in the west end. And here in the East End as well. More than just a Ute ski week, but a permanent year-round facility of their choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tooley. With that, Ernest, thank you very much for your time today. It's really appreciated for you to come to our intergovernmental meeting. We look forward to speaking with you a lot more in the future, and hopefully you get a wonderful turnout tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Mayor. Thank you all. Appreciate the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to agenda item work session 1C, and that is the update on the Telluride Regional Medical Center's new facility project. And we have Tom and Heidi on Zoom to present.
Okay.
Thanks, folks. Tom Crabtree here. I don't know if you can see me. I'm working off my phone. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm the chair of the board. I know a lot of you, but first time meeting several of you. Thanks for the opportunity to give you a quick update. Heidi, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Lauterbach, and I'm working with the Med Center as the Capital Campaign Director on this project.
Thanks, Heidi. So our goal today is to give you guys a brief update on where we are with the medical center and the plans, and then take a few questions. Hopefully, give people have people walk away from this meeting with the clarity that there is a plan in place. It's getting more detail and more enthusiasm from all the different constituencies with truly every passing week. And we're all, or many of us, are familiar with the history of this project, where it's been 20 years plus in the making, lots of false starts, lots of hiccups. But as evidenced by, you can see the groundwork starting out at Society Turn, we are in the thick of it and are going to make this happen for the community. The uh, goal of this entire project is to do really three things. One is to preserve clinical excellence. Those of you that have received care, whether it's primary care, emergency care, or something else at the medical center, we deliver great clinical care, and that's paramount that we preserve that, and we will preserve that with these plans. Second is to improve the healthcare environment for the entire community in whatever way possible, however possible. And then third, rural healthcare is not a good business from a financial perspective. So in order to make sure that we leave a legacy for the next 30 years of a stable, indeed healthy medical venture, financial sustainability and viability is an important part of this, and we'll talk about that. But those are our three paramount goals. Speaking of three, we actually, the way we're approaching all this and the way I'll update you here over the next couple of minutes is we have three arms that are both parallel and concurrent. We have a partnership arm because there is no path to viability or even continued existence without some sort of partnership to allow us to use various back office efficiencies to be able to assure our voters that we do not need to increase the mill levy. And begin to or guarantee that we can preserve the clinical excellence for the next 30 years. So the partnership is one avenue. The second avenue is development and or construction. As many of you are aware, there was for years a stated exit date from the Newmont mining company that owns the current site that we're all familiar with. We were supposed to be out of there by the end of 2031. And so that was the genesis of all this effort to figure out, okay, we need to get some new facility in place by the end of 2031. A little bit of a wrinkle with that in just the last couple, 2.5 months. Newmont came back to us and said they'd be thrilled to continue to support the region's healthcare by offering up the current site at the continued very nominal lease for another 30 years. We asked for 99. They said their corporate policy is 30 years, but we will have a option of first refusal or extension at the same terms at 25, at year 25 or 20. So we're looking at possibly being able to assure that site for another 60 years. That obviously opens up a whole number of possibilities, and we have a group that's working on the on the development and construction site, and I'll give detail in a second. The third arm is a capital campaign. We are not going to ever be able to build a new facility with our revenue or build a new facility with some other magic trick. Instead, it's going to be philanthropy, principally, and the donor community helping this new build happen. So let me give a little detail about those three arms. In terms of a partnership, we've looked at all of the big players, the Intermountains, the Common Spirits, etc. Currently, we are working with Common Spirit very closely. Intermountain pulled themselves out for various reasons. And we feel that there is a real path toward a relationship with Common Spirit. It will be an operational type partnership, not a clinical partnership per se. And I can go into great detail about any of that either separately. Please don't hesitate to contact me on my email if need be. But over the last 4 months, their proposal for an operating partnership has become very compelling. And it does check all those blocks in terms of preserving clinical excellence, allowing our healthcare environment to grow and thrive, and three, assuring financial sustainability. We've looked at other piecemeal partnerships with Aspen Valley Health, with Montrose, and then the entire Western Slope ecosphere, health ecosphere. And those are plan Bs right now, but are certainly possible to help us with certain things. On the development and construction site or construction pathway, now with this new opportunity to be able to continue with the town site, my personal um, opinion is these two sites could work very, very well. I also get lots of feedback from the community. It's safe to say at least 100 people over the last month or two have told me, look, if there's an opportunity to preserve at least primary care in town, could we please do that? Whether it's moms with kids or workers that want to go before or after work, that site is absolutely worthy of consideration to be preserved. The plan would be currently would be to build a freestanding emergency department. That's actually a government type term that allows you to bill and function in a certain way, but a freestanding emergency department out at Society Turn. You see the groundwork being done currently. And that would obviously be less expensive than putting everything out at Society Turn. And indeed, it opens up some space opportunities that I can get to in a minute to bolt on additional services, whether it's mental health space, whether it's additional PT space, diagnostic space, etc. But a freestanding ED out at Society Turn. In town, at the same site, we will refurbish the current site, which is not to code in many, many ways, with the idea to make a modern primary care facility with expanded hours. You can think of it urgent care type stuff, although urgent care is a separate type of government construct when it comes to businesses. But essentially, the same primary care that's there, the same providers with some expanded hours, but the opportunity to bolt on, now that the emergency department will not be there, some additional services. Again, it could be physical therapy, it could be mental health space, it could be a concierge service of some sort. There are lots of opportunities that now opened up to have the two spaces. We're looking as we speak, that development committee, what would the cost be so that it doesn't blow out the budget and so that it makes sense with not owning the property, but with a 30+ year lease. What would it take to refurbish the place to be up to code and modern and service the patient base best? So the two site pathway is the current plan. There's lots of talk about, can we build another site? Can we build a triage facility or a coordinating type facility up in Mountain Village? Dr. Houston, who I think is on this call, has been a passionate proponent of that. And it's something we certainly would look into and would love to do if we have the space and if it makes sense and we have the staff and we can support all that. But the idea again remains preserve clinical excellence and give the community the best healthcare it can moving forward. All of this, as I mentioned, none of it can be built without a capital campaign. And that there's a number of community members who have successfully run capital campaigns from the Valley floor to other bits and pieces under the auspices of the Telluride Foundation, who are helping us, as well as the Telluride Regional Medical Center Foundation, who are putting that together. Heidi's is the driver and coordinator of all that. But we already have a number of commitments, and I'm quite confident that we'll be able to get this funded, again, without any need for community input, with the exception of community philanthropy, individual or group, but certainly no government, bond, tax type avenues, because obviously none of us want to go that path. I'll stop there because I'm sure there are a couple questions, and turn it over. I don't know how to answer people on this. I don't see hands being raised, but I'll turn it back over to the group there and happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Very informative. Are there any questions for Tom?
I have one. I remember in a conversation, when I first got elected, so I'm forgetting some of the details, but I remember there were some advantages to building a medical center that, was like categorically, more things than what it currently is. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting all the details of that. But, if we're looking at an option where we're splitting the med center into two locations, are we sacrificing on the benefits that come with the increased services that we're able to offer?
Great question. So there's no decrease in any services because we would be going to a two-center build. I think you might be referring to, there was a lot of talk about there are various healthcare constructs, like a critical access hospital, which allows certain types of billing that would have been advantageous
Yeah.
to financial sustainability. We looked at those forensically uh, with good expertise and community expertise as well as hired expertise. I personally have a lot of experience developing healthcare facilities, and critical access hospital did seem at one point compelling till we ran the numbers. And because of our stable, not growing, maybe minimally decreasing population, certainly for the foreseeable future, we could not make a critical access hospital construct work. The biggest thing being you need to have 24/7. Now we have a 24/7 ER, of course, but you need to have an inpatient capacity per government requirements. Uh, Even just one bed blew out the budget. So we pivoted from a critical access hospital and instead are looking at a freestanding ED out at Society Turn again with the primary care facility here in town. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it more or less, yeah. Thank you.
Galena?
Thanks. This is Commissioner Galena Gleason. I have a question about timeline. When we were looking at approving the society turn
Right.
development, at that point, we were under the impression there was a sunset for the current space of 2030, as I recall. But it sounds
2031,
like
right? Right.
that is all that is shifted. And that sounds like that could be great news for the Med Center. But I'm wondering if you can give me an update on timeline for
Sure.
development and what the community might expect. I understand you're still in the fundraising stage and that there's a lot of unknowns. But I think many people have a question about when
Timeline.
this
Mhm.
prospective new development might be planned for completion.
Sure. No, great question again. So the current timeline that we have mapped out, again, you're absolutely right. We're not going to turn into a pumpkin the end of 2031 like we were before. I mean, things could change, but we've had multiple conversations in the last few weeks with Newmont, so they're committed to that. But we still use that as a planning sort of timeline. First thing we need to do is now that we have settled on or are very close to settling on the two sites, potential partnerships, et cetera, two or three sites, potential partnerships, et cetera. We have to get architects going. And the timeline for that would be this fall through to the spring. The next thing would be, and obviously you've got to pay for the architects, and that hopefully we would be able to rope into the capital campaign. Again, public information sessions will go out, all sorts of updates will go out so that people, it's as transparent as possible and people feel informed. But we'll get the resources to get the architects going. Then we have to hire a builder or builders. The site should be ready. The Society Turn site should be ready for them to start working on that next year, let's say next summer. It will take at least 2, probably 3 years to properly build. I'm not a architect or a builder, but that's what I've been told. And that obviously brings us to 2031 or 2030, 2031. So it's on sort of that same timeline. Now with the wrinkle of the two sites, would have to choreograph it in a way that we don't impact care in either of the emergency room services or the primary care services, but we have a notional plan how to do that. And the idea would be once we get the emergency room up and ready to go, which we would hope to have by the end of this decade for sure, 2029, we would then move the emergency services out there. They would come with their own additional diagnostic and laboratory type support. So that will be both at two sites. Once the emergency room services are moved over there, obviously then we're able to work the emergency service footprint that's at the current site in town and use it to expand the primary care services and the additional services that I mentioned earlier at the town site. So would there be some construction at the town site before the emergency room moved fully over? Sure. What exactly, I can't tell you, but those will be the marching orders given to architects and builders so that we're able to do that. Timeline again, 2031, everything up and running, hopefully. But again, we don't have the super hard stop that we did have before by the end of 2031. Hopefully we can do it all sooner. Weather, all those things certainly can impact it.
Great, Scott.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for a great presentation. I had a quick question. As I recall, the county PUD also included maybe 5 housing units that you guys were going to construct.
So 6.
6, sorry. Are those part of the construction at Society Turn, or is that going somewhere else?
No, great question. So 2 have already been checked off. The medical center currently owns and rents out 2 under the requirement listed for the 6. So 4 remain. Paul Reich and myself and others have had a number of discussions about how to meet that requirement. And interestingly, the requirement timeline-wise is not for quite some time, but obviously the sooner the better we can do it. So 2 things, we will wrap or try to wrap the housing build requirement into the capital campaign. And very excitingly, we've been in discussions. This is very early, but there's a possibility that together with the school district, we can work together to build. As you know, the school district also has a need to build additional facilities and are farther down the road by far than we are. So the most advantageous, both in terms of finances as well as timeline, ability to check that box for the additional 4, maybe with the school district. That's probably about as much detail as I can share or should share at this point, but we definitely have a commitment and a task and a requirement to build 4 additional facilities or houses.
Any other questions in the room? It is a work session and there are a couple hands raised. We'll take them. I am sensitive to everyone's time and we'll try to move us along, but we'll take these questions and move to the next agenda item.
Kay's our county plan.
Yep.
Hi, Kay Simonson, County Planning Director. Just wanted to fill in on the last question. The PUD does set aside some space for some affordable housing units on the medical center site, should they choose to develop that. So that's an option as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And then if you want to unmute Mr. Tooley, that would be great.
Doug Tooley, back when we were talking about the Mountain Village site, as Kim Houston will recall, I proposed a split facility, the retaining of the Telluride Medical Center, in order to reduce the wetlands footprint and make the wetland mitigation that much easier. A whole lot of issues there that are unfortunately still relevant. My understanding on the critical access hospitals is that a major benefit of those is to make low income care more affordable, that you're actually able to bill for the full cost of that. So, for example, a Medicaid patient, which has been problematic at the Telluride Medical Center. I'm just wondering what you think about that. I'd also, if you're still talking about people to merge with, I would suggest Family Health West. They are a smaller critical access hospital in Fruita, just west of Grand Junction. I'm getting a lot of my care there. And they operate at a scale which is much closer to what the Telluride Medical Center operates at. And it's a good organization. And it's I think it respects its doctors, its patient respecting doctors. And then lastly, as far as Mountain Village goes, they are having a number of construction projects going on.
Yeah.
And integrating a facility into one of those, slopeside care, would be feasible, and it's probably feasible at the peaks, perhaps in association with their spa facility there. Thank you.
No, great points, and we are beginning discussions with all of those new builds as well as the existing properties up in Mountain Village to see what's possible. And then we'll of course look at it too. Does it make clinical sense and does it make financial sense? So good points there. The second one that you raised about potential partnerships, we've been in discussions. They're well regarded. We obviously share clinical responsibilities with certain patients as we speak, but they are certainly on the radar in terms of how we can best help each other out. As far as the critical access hospital and the benefits to billing, or just as importantly, being paid for services rendered, especially with the Medicaid population, looked at that again in great detail. We have interestingly, a fairly small Medicaid patient base. And don't let me forget to emphasize, anybody and everybody that comes to Telluride Medical Center by policy, by practice, gets care, despite their ability, whatever their ability to pay. But the Medicaid lift, let's call it, that a critical access hospital could have provided in a best case scenario still didn't make the numbers work based on all the other critical access type requirements. And those are parts of studies, happy to share with whomever.
Great. Well, Tom and Heidi, thank you very much. Very informative, detailed presentation for us and for us to take to all of our constituents. So we really appreciate your time, appreciate you going over your allotted time to make sure we're well informed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Again, I know we're going a little late, so my apologies on that, but we'll keep rolling. We're going to work session agenda item 1D. That is update on regional infant care in Munchkins. Michelle, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to introduce Chamber Squire. She is our Munchkins Executive Director, Child Care Director, and we want to raise awareness around childcare. We're all painfully aware of childcare in the region and encourage everyone to think about childcare as kind of a three-legged stool. We need employment, jobs, we need housing and childcare. If any one of those things is not in place, then we lose families. And so we're seeing a pinch in some areas, and we just wanted to share that information with you. And with that, Chambers has a brief presentation to share.
Thanks, Michelle. Let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So yes, Michelle mentioned that this is going to be a very high overview of childcare in our region, mostly just to bring awareness to what we are seeing and make sure that everybody's staying collectively on the same page. So Mountain Munchkins is here in Mountain Village, and right now our mission is to provide sustainable, affordable, and quality childcare for the town of Mountain Village and San Miguel County. And right now, who we serve, families who live and work in San Miguel County. We give priority to residents, town of Mountain Village staff, and then the essential workforce. And then we open it up to everybody else in the community needing childcare. This was just an interesting statistic I pulled from the 2024 Bright Futures report that annually we're losing about 3.73 million due to a lack of childcare in the area. And on the flip side, offering childcare is bringing in roughly 10 million to the San Miguel County workforce. So our philosophy up here is that we're a play-based learning center. We focus on social and emotional development and regulation, and also trying to be inclusive as possible for our families who have kiddos who might have some learning delays or disabilities. Right now, our enrollment sits at 38 students with 4 classrooms. We have 6 infant enrollment spots, and then 6 wobblers, which is 1 in walking, 10 toddlers, and 16 preschoolers. Currently, our staffing we need about 12 full-time year-round staff members, and we are currently searching for an assistant director to help make sure that the program runs as smoothly as possible. So this will just go over, and I won't get too far into the details if anybody wants the presentation afterwards, but just a little bit of history and background on what each staff member is required to hold credential-wise. Our infant and wobbler rooms require the most staff training. Staff need to have a level 2 in the Colorado Shines PDIS professional development website. They also need to have an EQUIT certificate, which is a 3-month or a semester-long college course, and then 1 year in a classroom. The toddler program.
And sorry, Chambers, can you remind us what the ratio of staff is for the infants?
Say that again, Scott. I'm sorry.
What is the staff ratio for infants?
Yes, you can have 3 infants with 1 staff member, so 1 to 3.
1 to 3. Thank you.
Yep. And then for our toddler program, same level 2 for PDIS, and then there's some mandatory coursework every year that staff need to participate in. And our ratio for toddler program is 1 to 5, so we can have 10 with 2 staff. Preschool is where things get a little bit easier from a staffing level. You can have 1 staff member to 8 preschoolers in the state of Colorado, and the requirements are the same as toddlers. We do ask that our teachers have this IEP certification, but not all preschools need to have that. Again, this is kind of just a really broad overview, but the space is obviously a tricky part when it comes to childcare. Infants require 50 square feet of indoor space per child. Toddlers, it goes up a little bit to 55, and then preschool goes down a little bit to 45. But in order to have a program that meets the community's need, there needs to be a facility large enough to hold all the students. And as we know, that's a tricky thing to find. So here's where it gets interesting. So our current wait list, we have 41 students on the wait list right now. 26 of the 41 are infants. 5 of the 41 are Mountain Village residents, and 12 of the 41 are considered essential staff. So that's police department, fire department, med center, and school district. And then
Dan Jansen is fond of pointing out that the notion of a wait list for an infant is a little ridiculous because by the time the wait list clears, they're no longer an infant.
Yes, we're always chasing our tails a little bit on that. So here's a look at where we're at with the regional childcare capacities. And again, I won't go into each number, but we are looking at only having my program, as well as the Norwood program offering infant care. They're looking at being up to full capacity by November, which is really exciting because previously they've kind of had some hiccups with their infant care. So it's really exciting to see that they're bringing that back. But we're able to offer 18 infant spots in the region, and we have 21 on the wait list. So
I do want to just add that our Beehive, which is transitioning now, but for Sunnyside, is focused on infants. So it's up to 3, and they're trying to get that up to 5 with a waiver. So Anyway, it's not on your list, but.
Perfect. That's great to hear. So here's a little bit of a breakdown about our demographics, just showing that we are pretty evenly split between Mountain Village residents and the rest of the community, providing care to those kiddos. And across the board, excuse me, shows that we are, very much a regional partner for childcare. So here's where it gets interesting too, is that the revenue presented, after COVID, grant funding has dried up over the last few years, and so the subsidy has really been funded by the town of Mountain Village. Our tuition rates we have increased them slightly. However, we don't want to make it to where parents can't afford childcare. And we do get some grant funding both to the program, but also directly to the parents from Strong Start and Bright Futures. But you can see that the subsidy that town is offering has definitely been impacted over the last few years due to grant funding dry up. And then here's just a quick breakdown about expenses by category. We have been working hard to make childcare more of a career-focused endeavor for staff versus kind of this transient staffing model that we had in the past years. So we're looking at a full-time employee model with benefits. We also offer some housing opportunities. We recently expanded from 4 to 5 days a week in September of 2023, and then last year expanded our infant program, adding another 4 spots for infants. But all of that to be said, the town is still providing a very high subsidy over the last decade, looking at doing 2.33 million through the end of 2026. The subsidy includes the expansion of the infant program from 8 to 12. Infants are unfortunately the most expensive students in the program, and the highest need. So in September of 2026, this upcoming September, we're going to roll to a monthly rate, meaning that it doesn't matter if you bring your child 2, 3, 4 days a week, that monthly rate will stay the same to just help keep the program sustainable. And then Strong Start and Bright Futures will also help assist with tuition costs towards families. And this past year, we were awarded about $171,000 towards tuition assistance. This will quickly go over about our infant program subsidy. In 2026, we projected at 100% capacity will be at $266,100 by the town of Mountain Village. Our toddler program is $112,000. And then our preschool program will be at $127,000. Preschool is notoriously the easier program to operate just because the ratios are more in our favor. However, we have quite a handful of students this year who are on IEPs, and they require an additional set of staff to make sure that we are upholding their care to the level that they need. And then finally, to go into our 2026 objectives and what we've been working on, and part of why we're bringing this to you all today, is just to continue to work to stabilize funding and ensure sustainability of the program. We are working on establishing a fund so that we can expand fundraising and community donation opportunities. This move to the full-time care model beginning in September will help with the variability of our part-time care. And then again, we're still continuing to improve employee retention rates. This is a national issue. It's not just regional, but I don't think that being a remote and expensive place to live helps in that struggle. But I will say that we've done some great work in making sure that our staff are sticking around long term. And then looking at a potential expansion. So knowing that we have so many infants on our wait list and it's such a big need for our community, we are working with my council and regional partners to figure out how to talk about expanding the program so that we can, like Scott and Dan have said, keep the wait list, the infant wait list, as low as possible, while noting that it's kind of chasing our tails. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions, but thank you all so much for the opportunity to just give a brief update on what Munchkins is up to right now.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Questions from any?
Just add a quick sort of coda to what Chambers presented, which is that we are in discussions with TMBOA about a very generous subsidy that would allow us to expand the program, significantly expand the infant program. And one of the things, though, that we're probably going to be looking at is a cost of potentially up to $1 million in one-time physical cost to expand the site. As you saw, we're the only provider of infant care in the east end of the county. And so we may be coming to our regional government partners for help in the one-time capital expense to make that space available for infants across the area.
I'll add on to that it may include displacing 2 of our residential units to keep it in the same location because we don't really have a new building or a new site or anything like that. So there's a little bit of a trickle effect that we've been looking at in terms of those individuals and their leases and doing cost estimating with those renovations. But we think it can generally work on site and talking with everybody. There isn't really like, oh, I mean, we do have a potential site in Ilium, but that's years off. And then.
Yeah. Council is aware of this and obviously it will be up to final financing and programming, but a large part of our Shandoka lot redevelopment is 2,000 square feet of childcare space, focusing on toddler and infant care. So that will increase from the town side, a lot of that burden that Mountain Village is seeing as well. And again, we have focused on putting in-home childcare spaces and some of our units, specifically right now in our Sunnyside, that we again focus on younger, so toddler and infant care there. So we do have that available, plus the other ways that we subsidize our community's childcare, which we can touch on. But TMBA did reach out and I kind of gave them all of that information as well, just so everybody knows, which includes our grant funding through CCASE to all of our childcare providers. It's about $34,000 a year. Our subsidy, since we took over Elaine's Place for toddler, which is about $140,000 a year through our general fund. And then we own the facility for Telluride Preschool. So we heavily subsidize their rent for that as well. So, and I can't give enough shout outs to, of course, Bright Futures and Strong Start, who are a huge part of the cog in this wheel for the problem, because they help with expansion costs, the grant, the additional to help families and pay for tuition, and for providing additional funds for worker support. So huge thanks to them too.
Great. And I see Dan's hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that each jurisdiction is providing childcare and is subsidizing childcare. It's expensive. Study after study shows that spending government money on young kids is your highest return on investment possible. The specific question on the table, though, is infant care. And in the east end of the county, Mountain Village is one of the only, I think the only provider, Chambers. And we're happy to do it because we believe it's really important. But having, I don't know what the numbers are now, 20, 30 plus infants on a wait list is oxymoronic, right? Because by the time they're off the wait list, they're no longer an infant. So we'd really encourage our friends and neighbors nearby to join us in putting more money into infants. Everybody loses money on toddlers and preschoolers. We're losing an extra bit more on infants. So far, we've been willing to do it. When I was mayor many moons ago, it was about 100,000. Now it's way more. So I just would encourage you to think about piling in. Zoe, if those new places you're talking about will have infant care, that's a great way to do it. if joining us on the capital campaign for expanding our facility where we can play a regional role, that's another great way to do it. And I just hope you join us on this because we all believe it's really important. And we don't want to get to the place where we have an infant care wait list. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of embarrassing. We're a wealthy community and we're not taking care of our babies. And we're not helping out our families with young babies. And I really think we should.
And Dan, I just want to clarify the 2,000 square feet in the Shandoka lot redevelopment is very strictly like a childcare center. While another tactic we are taking is at home childcare because they have different licensing, just to provide an additional avenue for childcare. So
And Zoe, just to make sure I understand, those specifically will include infant care?
that will be up to council and their final decisions for financing and programming. But right now, yes, that's how we're when we're looking at like yard space, square footage, and other pieces, it's very much keeping those elements in mind.
And when will that first baby crawl in that door? I mean, is that
Again, it'll be up to council, but it's on their goals and objectives for this coming year to hopefully break ground in that development potentially.
great? Well, I hope you all do it. It's up to you. And if that doesn't work out or that takes longer time, maybe we scale up a bit and try to help a little more regionally while you get that thing up and going. I mean, there's a bunch of ways to skin the cat here, which
Great,
is a
thanks, Dan.
weird saying. I apologize.
I just want to point out that my two boys are Mountain Munchkins alumni. They were, I think,
How are they doing, Ian?
they're rocking. They're rocking it. And I believe they started as infants. It's been a long time. And I remember the second one was asked to leave because he was too big for the toys.
Toby?
No, that was Robert. He was 6'7". He was too big for the toys. That's funny though. I knew that Mountain Village subsidized Mountain Munchkins. I wasn't sure how much. It sounds like I'm trying to add it up in my head, 300 grand a year altogether, something like that. And millions.
600.
650.
Okay, I didn't do the math.
Yeah, it was Chambers. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, for 2026, it'll be 650,000.
Yikes. Okay. Wow. That is amazing. And I appreciate that Zoe went through all of the subsidies and support you're providing. I just want to point out that all of us here who pay San Miguel County property taxes are actually funding that Bright Futures money. There's about, I think we raise about $1.2 million a year. And we were fortunate enough to have the voters lift the cap on that. So that will hopefully keep growing if property values continue to increase. And that goes to direct subsidies for families. It goes to teacher education. It goes to subsidizing teachers' wages. So that is a big contribution that goes through the county. And then we should also recognize a lot of families in the community, I would say 32 or 3, are subsidized through CCAP, which is a state program, which Galena, you're the expert. Do I have that right?
Don't call me an expert, but but that is correct. Yes. And we recently instituted, we as in the county, a wait list for the CCAP funding source. Most counties actually in the state right now are on a funding freeze there. So they're not allowing any new enrollments. But we instituted the wait list. So it's kind of a one in, one out
And that
model right now. But we're looking at ways to expand our numbers for the wait lists so that we hopefully ideally don't have a wait list moving into the future and we're able to serve all of the students.
Yeah, exactly. And just, our part of our human services department's function is administering the CCAP together, partnering with Bright Futures. So I guess the point I want to make to the Mountain Village is that we are all already collaborating and contributing to childcare here. So it's not a no by any means, and this is just me speaking right now, obviously, but I just want to make sure we all understand how collaborative the effort already is.
And I'll also weigh in because I do sit on the Early Childhood Advisory Panel, ECAP, which delegates all of the county early childhood mill levy. And we equally distribute those funds based on enrollment numbers throughout daycare centers in the county. So every daycare center is being funded through those taxpayer dollars. And thank you, Chambers, for everything you do. My kid's also an alumni of Mountain Munchkins, and this just really pulls on all of our heartstrings, knowing that there's such a need, and we're just trying to fill it in any way we can. And it seems like almost an impossible task some days, but I am glad to hear that TMVOA is considering chipping in, and that could be a really good solution potentially to help with this infant long wait list and need for more capacity there.
Yeah.
Great. Dan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, and I'm sounding like a broken record, which I said to my teenage daughter the other day, and she didn't know what that meant. But the specific issue is infant care, and I really appreciate you raising how we're all putting money towards it. Our community through tax dollars, each government. How do you end up with a toddler? You start with an infant. How do you end up with a preschooler? You get to a toddler. So again, another bad image here, but if the rat going through the snake begins with the baby, we got to find more slots for babies. And that's what we're specifically asking for here. We're all losing money on this. Frankly, I'm happy to lose money on this. We just have to make sure it's kind of, equitably shared across the region.
Galena, we might need to follow up on this, but doesn't ECAP have a capital grant annually?
Yes.
Yeah.
They
So that's
used to.
something you guys should look into.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm sure Chambers has been reaching out, and we'll be having our quarterly ECAP meeting in early September, and so I'm sure this will be a topic of discussion there.
Good.
Yes, it's on the board. So
Yeah, and I think in summary, it's just that we recognize it's located in Mountain Village. The infant care need is countywide. So we have 26 families that don't have infant care today. And we don't even have the capacity to take in 26 families today. And those kids do keep aging. And it's a real stressor. Housing, employment, childcare, super stressful for our families. And so it's important and imminent. And it's hard because it's really hard to gear up. Now, we all kind of know the issue now, but it's hard to gear this up as quickly as the families need it. And that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, and if I could be clear, I'm sorry I'm talking too much, but I don't care where it is. It's kind of like the med center. I just want one, right? And so if the town of Telluride could gear up a facility fast for infants specifically, come talk to us and maybe we can chip in there. We just having 30 infants on a wait list is just it's not who we are. And so if it ended up in the county or in the town of Telluride, I'm highly supportive of it. I just know we need more slots.
And I'll just add, as a mother who has lived through this not that long ago, I think it's yes and. I don't think one jurisdiction is going to be the solution. I think we all need to continue working toward the solution, and it's probably going to be expansion in a lot of different places.
I think as our council decides what to do with that space in the Shandoka lot, this is heard and noted, and we recognize this is a problem. And so when we go into discussing that, we'll definitely keep this top of mind.
Great. We'll move on to our last agenda item, 1E, United States Forest Service update with Megan Eno.
She is at the fire camp, so it may take a second. Here we go.
Mute myself. Nope, did I hang up? No.
Nope, you're there.
You are.
We can hear you.
Okay. Hi, folks. Yes, I'm at the illustrious fire camp for the Gold and Elk Mountain fires, and so I apologize. I have not prepared a presentation for today, but I didn't want to miss my opportunity to speak with all of you. So if I remember correctly, when we were coordinating this gosh, maybe a month ago now, I had committed to giving an update on the Telluride ski area environmental analysis, which we have been working on, and then talk a little bit about fire mitigation in Mountain Village, which feels extremely relevant right now, sitting on the particular fires that I am. So I'll give those two brief updates, and then I'd really like to just open it up for questions because I feel like I don't get to see all of you as often as I should. And yeah, I'm not committed for the next 20 to 30 minutes. So for those of you that have been following along with the Telluride ski area EA, that objection period closes today. And as far as I can tell from looking in the public reading room, we haven't received any objections to date. And what that means is for us is if nobody files a last minute objection, is that we are only a few weeks away from finalizing that decision. The ski area environmental analysis contained things like lift replacements, additional trails, and it also included the additional tool of tethered logging within the ski area in those polygons that we were previously analyzed under the SPEDMR NEPA. But to be honest with you right now, none of those projects are slated for 2027 implementation. And so we're not in a rush for implementation because it's largely funding driven. And so if there will be future kind of like public notice when we implement portions of that EA, but we're excited to get that analysis done so it can sit on the shelf and be ready for future implementation. So I'm going to pause there and just see if folks had questions specifically about that NEPA before I shift gears and start to talk about fire mitigation. Hey, Doug, good to see you.
We'll start in the room. Anne?
I have a question about projects for 2027. I had heard rumors that Giuseppe's might get completed in 2027. Would you know anything about that, Megan?
2 years.
Yeah, so that those restaurant upgrades weren't included in the SNEPA, but yes, they did get their building permit and are proceeding on construction. So I haven't gotten an update on that completion timeline, but I could certainly check in and report back to you, Anne.
If it's easy, I don't want to distract you from.
Well, I'm not going to commit to doing it this week. How's
No, I
that? Because I'm
understand.
back to the office. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
They're shooting for next winter for Giuseppe's.
So they
not this upcoming
Yeah,
winter,
they build
the
it in
next winter.
27 and be open that.
That's what they're shooting for. Whether that happens or whether they're contractually obligated, I have no idea, but I do know that for sure.
Megan, that's off your plate. Thank you. Mhm.
I have a question, Megan. This is Galena. How are you doing? I have a question about the fire mitigation tethered logging portion of the EA, and I think that would be a real benefit to the community here, not only for creating more glading and better skiing on the ski area, but for fire mitigation. Do you have any indication of the timeline for that, or what kind of the how Telski is prioritizing that portion of the plan?
I will say that we don't have any commitments right now from the ski area to fund implementation of any of those polygons. Typically what happens is at the end of the fiscal year, if there are any forest health funds remaining, I'll prioritize what area that those funds are directed to. And 2 out of the last 4 years, we had money available and we put that into an agreement with the ski area for implementation. So right now, I really kind of need to see what happens in the next 30 days with our budget to see if there are any funds available, because I usually swoop those up and try to get them secured into an agreement, but we have no commitments right now for 2027. And I think something that I would like to clarify for the public, because we did identify those as like glading polygons, but the reality is the implementation of that work is going to meet those SPEDMR NEPA objectives, which means, yes, we'll be thinning stands and there will be an opportunity for skiing within those stands, but we are not maintaining those areas for glading in the sense that once the regeneration hits above the snow line, they won't be able to be skied anymore. So there will be short-term benefits of those glading projects, but they're not meant to be maintained in the long term. So your tree skiing is going to spread around based on the growth that's coming in behind those treatment polygons. So in short, I don't have a commitment for 27, but I may know more in the next 30 days based on our budget conditions.
Any other questions in the room, Anne?
Follow up. So is it the Forest Service or TSG that's responsible for wildfire mitigation within the permit area? Financial.
Yeah, it's still Forest Service system lands. And so whenever I have money to apply, I can do that. But the ski area isn't under any obligation, right, to complete fire mitigation within their permit boundary, but they've certainly done that periodically in the past.
Thank you.
And to add to that, there are portions of the ski area that are in the municipal boundary of Mountain Village. And so different rules, apply and they're the landowner and are responsible for those activities.
Thanks.
The only other question I'll add is that for the town of Telluride side of things, as we're looking at hopefully 2 larger projects in the Lift 7 area. I know that I'll say because I don't want to speak for we, but certainly I think that a detachable high-speed quad would be a worthwhile investment in that neighborhood for replacing the old school double chair. I mean, I love the old school double chair, but things change. And so I just want to throw that out there. Any other questions in the room before we go for a question online? Seeing none, Mr. Tooley has his hand raised. We'll unmute him, please.
Doug Tooley, as I recall, the permit review in 2016 was similarly not engaged by the local population, which struck me curious then and strikes me as curious now. And I think we need to be a little bit more proactive about that. We all know how those public processes can go. And that's one of the most difficult things about a leadership position is how to make that work constructively. But it does seem to be deficient, and I can maybe put in an objection in regards to that lack of involvement in this plan, and certainly a community that cares very much about its ski area. On the question of the fire mitigation money, I would think, seeing that some districts that I'm aware of get a lot more fire mitigation money, that local politicians can have a impact on those budget processes at the national level. Don't know the details, but if you follow the money for a few decades, that would be my supposition. I do have a question. As I recall, there is a bill, and I forget if it's Hurd or Bennett that's a co-sponsor, that speeds up the environmental review process for Forest Service projects. My thinking was that was smaller scale. I don't know if you could speak some more to that bill, Megan. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug, I can't speak to that bill specifically. I guess when I get back to my desk, I'll do a little digging around. What I can tell you is that the agency has been given updated direction, right, that we are required to complete environmental analyses in a year or less, and a similar sort of truncated timeline for environmental impact statements. I will say that for us here at high elevation, that can be really challenging to do the analysis, do the survey workloads and the public engagement when sometimes the ground is only accessible 6 months out of the year. But we're doing our best. But yeah, the agency has direction to complete environmental assessments in a year or less. And we're getting pretty close to those timelines.
Great. Well, Megan, we'll wrap up the Telski part of it and let you continue.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about fire mitigation. I think the fact that we had a fire at elevation outside of the community originally the way that we have, it's just a really eye-opening experience, I think, for all of us, or at least it should be for the Telluride Valley. And I know that we have been working with the Ski Ranches HOA, right, to kind of develop a mitigation plan between their community and the ski area boundary. And we've committed to finalizing that proposed action this fall and initiating analysis over the winter. That NEPA analysis itself will likely be a categorical exclusion because there are categories that are specifically designed for fuels mitigation work. And so it won't be an environmental analysis, which is that second tier of NEPA, but we've made that commitment. But I know that this experience right now on the Gold Mountain and Elk fires has me really thinking what's going to be the bigger picture for the Telluride Valley, and where is our next area of opportunity going to be. So I don't have much for you today, but sitting in fire camp, it's certainly on my mind when I get back home. What type of work do we want to do together, just so that we're feeling ready in the same way, yeah, in terms of the fire behavior that we're seeing here on Gold Mountain. So just a thought for future efforts, but I don't know if others want to add to that, or if there is something else specific that you would like to hear about, a project that we're working on the Norwood Ranger District, or anything else I can offer you today.
Great, Megan. Thank you very much. Any questions for Megan?
I have one question about the Telluride Mountain Club trails proposal, and if you can update us on that process. And then secondarily, I know that your district office has been looking to hire a heritage cultural staff member to handle some portion of the NEPA process, and was wondering, Megan, if you could let us know where you're at with that hiring that position.
So for the Telluride Trails EA, that objection period has closed, and we did receive one objection. And so right now, we're going through kind of the objection response time, where we evaluate the individual merits of that objection and determine whether we need to improve our analysis, or make any changes before we sign a final decision. So I know that the objection review team right now is working through that letter, and working on the response to that objection, and that ultimately our forest supervisor will be the one who is the resolving official for that. But we're only a few weeks away from being able to finalize that decision. And I don't want to speak to whether or not there will be any changes made, because I want to let that process unfold, but we're very close to being able to sign a final decision. And then let's see, your second question about a heritage specialist. There was an outreach opportunity to hire one for the Uray and Norwood Ranger districts, because we typically share an archaeologist, but we came up empty-handed in that hiring process. So I have no idea what the timeline is going to be. It's been very sporadic and limited our ability to hire. And so right now that vacancy continues to just stay empty. What I can say is that when we start working on fire mitigation projects and other things in the community, I know that that's something that I will often come back to all of you and say, can you help me fund a heritage survey? Can we pay a consultant to do this survey workload? Because it's much easier for me to beg and borrow an archaeologist from another unit to do consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office if that report has already been prepared. So the Telluride Mountain Club, for instance, did fund the archaeologist, same thing for the ski area, to get us through that NEPA process. So don't be surprised if I come back to you and say, I'd love to do this project. Can you contribute by helping us pay for those surveys to be completed?
Great, thank you. Any other questions before we let Megan go? Seeing none, Megan, thank you very much. Thank you for all your efforts in fighting those two fires, and to you and everyone out there, stay safe, and we really appreciate all that you do for us.
Thank you for letting me join you virtually. You guys have a good rest of your day.
All right, with that, I'd like to apologize / thank everyone for hanging in a little late today. I really appreciate that. But with that, unless there's any other questions, we will move towards adjournment by mutual consent.